phenomenal program, and the architect of that program is here with us today. So I'm going to please invite Dr. Keith Miller up to the stage to come and present the award, sorry, down in front of me to present the award. And Cary Reid, please can you come? AAIE Innovative Leader 2017. Cary and Cary's speech, and to give a little bit more background and context than what I was able to share, please could you join me in welcoming Dr. Reid, the President of ESOL Education, to the stage, who's going to introduce Cary and our speech this morning. Reid.
Good morning. I stand before you this morning to introduce this most outstanding leader and visionary in education, Cary Reid. Cary is the coordinator of the UWC Mahindra project-based diploma at UWC Mahindra College. He leads the team responsible for developing and implementing the program, a brave approach to redesigning education for the 21st century. Built on the principles of project-based learning, experiential education, and outdoor learning. He believes that educators must support the learning that happens both in and out of the classroom. Prior to developing the UWC Mahindra project-based diploma, Cary has been combining theory and practice to promote peace and education. I love to say education and peace, because education leads to peace. He has lectured at universities, taught in schools, and designed curricula for boards of education in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, Europe, and North America. He has supported governments and international organizations with peace-building processes in Africa and Asia. He has also served as a diplomat and as a public health consultant for multiple ministries of health. Keynote titled, Walking with Our Students into the Future. I feel very honored to present to you Cary Reid, and the name of the award is after Dr. Keith Miller, who is a visionary and who has been very effective in promoting overseas education. Thank you.
Shukriya, everyone. Thank you so much. On behalf of 17 United World Colleges, on behalf of the Mahindra Group, thank you so much for your honor. I and everyone with whom I work on this is truly honored to be here. I guess everyone says this, but I really didn't expect this to happen. But I'm going to keep it, including the award that I dropped. Which is still fine, totally fine. And the thing I wanted to share with you is we're trying to do this so that it hopefully is a little bit easier for you to do something like it, or hopefully for you to do it better. And I just want to walk you through how we got here, why we're here, and hopefully this makes a little more sense to you. This is going to change. It will, I promise. Are you here? It does. Yesterday we had this great presentation about the essential elements of international education, and that's also one of them. it's flying. A couple years ago, Solar Impulse 2 had this grand plan. They were going to fly around the world using only solar energy. And it was great, it was ambitious, it was big, it was going to help us try to find a way to save the planet and still get around. And then it broke down over the Pacific, and they had to park it for a while. And this is kind of what we're all doing. There's usually this really great idea. We push it about as far as it can get, and then something happens and we have to stop. And if we're lucky, we get to restart it. If we're not, then we get to try something different. But what was really fun is that about a year later, which makes perfect sense, they got it going again. And they did circumnavigate the globe. It just took a little longer. And that's actually what we're doing. We have a really good idea, and we're still trying to get it right. But it's going to take a little longer because there are lots of things involved. And just wanted to share with you a bit about what we're doing. And the fun part about finally doing this joke again is that we're in San Francisco, and I really love that picture because it's the second part of it. So it works out really well. This is one of the big highlights of my talk. Honestly, it's just being in San Francisco. The rest of it. But this is what I want to talk to you about. It's how we do high school. And we're trying to figure out 3 different things, basically. What we're delivering, what we're teaching, how we're delivering it, and whether our students are getting it or not. And these 2 are the bits that I want to look at for most of this presentation. Usually, and this is really simplistic, and please forgive me for this, but it does make sense. You hand over a bunch of textbooks, and at the end of the semester, you hand over a blank sheet of paper. And if you do the textbooks well enough, the piece of paper should be fine, and then you've learned something. And we've been doing this for a really long time, and there's a reason for it. It's a good way to do it. It's efficient. But it's not perfect. I think we'll all agree on that. In the 70s, the United World Colleges helped create the IB because we thought there was another way to do that. So we've been trying to push up against this for a long time. And this is kind of what we came to figure out. It was the experiential piece. Maybe there's a way to not have the textbooks, but still get exactly the same results on that blank sheet of paper at the end, and trying to have more experiential education. And that's not new, but someone tried to put it together and it worked, and the IB is fairly successful, so it's definitely working for a lot of people. But it's that first piece that we think is really important. And it's going back to Dewey, it's going back to Montessori, it's going back to Steiner, it's going back to Carcan. And there's a way to do high school without handing over 1 million textbooks, while still having it be rich and rigorous and challenging, and getting those great, mature, wonderful students that we all need. But we wanted to do something else. And that gap between pedagogy and assessment is what we were trying to figure out. And the way that we did this was actually trying to combine them, and honestly and intentionally combine them. And by the way, if you're looking for an excuse to do a professional development exchange, that's my campus. So if you kind of need a warmer place to be anytime in the next few months, very happy to have you, and you can have one of those walks with my students. One of the difficulties with combining this, with changing anything, in education specifically, is this dilemma. And we usually run up against this every time we try to do something different. And it's a piece that we do need to think about. We need to be very honest about it. I teach peace studies. I've been studying this for a while. And conflict is the apparent incompatibility of needs. That's where the conflict arises. And that, on paper, is a conflict. Those 2 things aren't going to line up very well, but they have to. I have to give a university what they're asking me for, so my students are competitive and they can move on. Universities have to ask me for what I've been giving them because that's the only thing I'm prepared to do. And at some point, one of us has to step outside of this conflict so that we can transform it. And we decided to do that. And one of the benefits of doing that is that hopefully we can have other people come with us. One of the advantages that we have, being one of the United World Colleges, and we're really happy to do this, is that we have the capital and we have the goodwill, and we have enough brand recognition that we can make this a little bit easier for schools because we've been doing it for a while. And the idea of me being here right now with you is hopefully, if I can do that step, then we can bring the normal one step further, and it'll make it a little bit easier for you. One of the great things about working in India, which is a wonderfully big, huge, beautiful, massive space in which to try to change things, is that we're trying to have these conversations with schools, with boards, with principals, with parents, very important. The kids are sort of the easy part. They're ready to do this. But there are other things in place that need to happen. And essentially, the way we solved this conflict was trying to figure out this question. Are we walking away from something, or are we walking towards something? And this is what I want to walk you through now, and help you get an understanding of how we got to this place, and see if it makes sense to you, and then maybe you could try it, or see if it doesn't make sense to you, and maybe we could do it differently, so that maybe you could try it the next time. That's the idea. Again, we've been playing this game since about '62, and a big part of what we do at the UWCs is experiential learning, is making sure that you connect with and understand and feel and touch and smell what you're doing. We have students from 80 countries. A big part of learning is just being in the same room for 2 years and trying to understand exactly what's happening. One of the reasons I do the thing I do is because I had a really great roommate from Albania who essentially walked me through everything that was happening during the Serbia-Kosovo conflict in '98, '99, and I suddenly realized that what I wanted to study was peace studies. And I never did it in a class, but it made sense and it suddenly had meaning, and that's the experiential piece, and that's what we wanted to do with a project-based diploma. Also, I want to apologize, we don't spend a lot of time on creativity. It's a project-based diploma because it is a diploma based on a project, and a lot of the names are going to be really dead simple, but hopefully it makes sense. The idea behind this is that the only thing you need to pick is something that you're passionate in, something you want to engage with, something that you love doing, and that you will hopefully keep enjoying for 2 years. At 16, I don't think any of us knew what we wanted to do with the rest of our lives, and if we did, it probably changed a million times. But if there's passion, it makes that easier. My job is to find a way to put some learning around your passion that you'll get exactly what you need from that experience. And I'll tell you how that works, and hopefully this makes sense. We start off with what we are and who we are, which is a group of 17 schools that believe that we want to make education a force for peace and a sustainable future. And it sounds like everyone else's mission statement, but given the time in which we live and the place in which we find ourselves, it's actually quite important, honestly. The second part is the project. It's this. Right now, my 3 students are working on using sports and development to help with gender identity and gender understanding. Essentially, she's created a Frisbee league in my village, attached it to the National Co-ed Ultimate Frisbee League, and trying to see how boys playing co-ed sports with girls, which never happens in my part of the world, is going to help change attitudes. But all she's doing is playing Frisbee. But she's not, because it's also the mapping, it's the research, it's understanding the logistics, travel, health, nutrition, understanding gender dynamics, and she's actually quite creative because she gets to design the jerseys, but I don't, because I'm doing other things. It's the project. If you tell me what you want to do, I promise you I can find really interesting, capable professionals who want to work with you. And this is a part that you've also got to appreciate. We have brilliant kids who are going off to university and struggling, which doesn't make any sense, because they've done well in our school system, but universities are hard, so there's something that we're missing. We have great kids who go off to the world and work, but they're also struggling, and that doesn't make sense because they've just done really well at an academic program. So either we're not asking for what we're supposed to be, or we're giving them something they don't need, and that's where this comes in. They don't get it from me, they get it from the sports and development researcher, they get it from the head of the Mumbai Frisbee Association, they'll get it from a color coordinator who helps them design jerseys, and figure things like that out. Last year, one of our kids worked on a biodigester to help flip our organic waste into methane so that we could try to reduce our carbon footprint, and then scale that out with a farming co-op to see how many we needed in the valley. It turns out there's 6 ways that you can make concrete. I didn't know this, but there's 6 ways you can make concrete, which isn't a very useful thing unless you have to put up a massive 2-ton biodigester that has to work in and out of the monsoon. But that's trying to figure out weather dynamics, biochem, and making sure that all those things work. And it's trying to connect things. And I promise you, everything your students want to learn and everything on paper you are going to teach them can fit into this project. The part that hopefully will keep boards and parents and principals at bay is the second ring, which is a classroom academic program. If you figure out what your project is, what you want to be doing, you really should have some serious theoretical grounding around that. Otherwise, the whole thing falls apart. And we're really lucky. We've gotten to work with the IB, which has been very supportive, and with Cambridge International Exams, which is also really great. We have this beautiful hybrid program with a 5,000-word research paper. One of our kids right now is working on how commercial fishing off the coast of Mumbai is changing traditional fishing communities. And again, looking at issues of gender, sociology, politics, economics, trade. But all he's doing is looking at how fishing's changing. But he's not, but he is. And that's where I think it works. It's making sure that this connects. And he's getting ready to publish his first journal article in a couple of weeks. And that's 12,000 words from a 17-year-old who really just wants to be a fisherman. But he's a high school student and he should be ready for what comes next, which is what we all agreed that we were going to do when we sat down with them. And that's how it gets to be a bit more possible. And I promise you it really is. The last thing, which is impossible to read there, is a seminar program where basically they just spend most of their time going to talks and delivering talks, because a big part of what they do is this, is making sure that they can communicate. People's nations and cultures and why they don't always agree, which again is a timely course and something that's extremely important given where we are and when we are. But it's looking at epistemology. It's looking at how we know what we know, where our bias comes from, where judgment comes from, where these ideas come from. And trying to figure out where those disconnects happen. If we have a lot of good people in the same room, we should come to the same conclusion, but we don't. And maybe that's okay that we don't, because that's where the change happens, and that change hopefully comes with growth. But that's something we've put together, and if you want to talk about it, I'm happy to share with you a bunch of information on that. And it involves going on 2 weekend hikes, which is great. Yet another reason to come to do just saying. But that sounds really good, except that at some point you're going to have to talk to a university or a parent or a partner, and you're going to have to explain what we're doing. And this is where we have, again, this question, are we walking back? Are we turning around? What exactly are we doing? And this is the assessment model, which I know a lot of you are interested in. And we have essentially got up and thought, okay, we've been teaching for a very long time. We have a really good way of doing this. And what we do right now, and you can jump on me if this doesn't seem right to you, is we teach content. And somewhere sandwiched in that content, we work on skills development. We teach math. But in math, we're doing problem solving. We teach Shakespeare, but in Shakespeare, we're doing critical analysis. We're looking at themes and understanding things in that nature. We're looking at geography, which is not just physical geography, it's understanding what happens spatially and how the politics affects the economics affects just exactly what's on the ground and why this dirt is slightly different. So we decided to change that slightly. But instead of teaching content and sandwiching those skills, what if we just started off looking at these 6 skill areas that we think 21st century adults should be competent in? And in there, I haven't met as much content as we need. One of my students is working on a theater project telling stories of rural women using Theater for the Oppressed. She created a theater troupe to put this all together, and she's going to be traveling around my region of the world, essentially Pune, Mumbai. And through that, she's going to get all the language skills that you need, the foreign language skills that you need, the math to make this work, the science that's going to come together, the artistic expression, it's all there. But we're just focusing on something slightly different. Maybe we do skills, and then in those skills, we embed, attach to those skills, we attach this content. And that's our way of doing it. Each one of these things has about 3, 4, 5, 6 areas that we want to develop. 21st century themes, we're looking at issues of global awareness, civic literacy, financial literacy, something that we all probably should have gotten a little bit earlier, would have made us all a bit happier. ICT skills, which makes, again, these things just seem to come up again and again, and we're grappling with them. Media literacy, how we create, how we analyze, how we use that. But that's what we think a competent, ready, mature 21st century adult should be doing. And if we can make sure they get enough calculus, which they will, and get enough bio and chem, which they will, and get enough history and foreign languages, which they will, then maybe if we check that off, then we'll be doing a good job educating our students. And this is how we think we can keep that pedagogy and delivering it with the assessment. Because not many of us have had to sit down for 4 hours and write a paper about our last 3 months at work. So let's get them ready for that as well. And essentially we sit down at the start of the year, and this is Anna who's working on theater, and we basically get all of those competencies, we map it out onto what their project is going to be, and you don't have to read this, it will be somewhere else. And in each of these competencies, this is learning and innovation skills, that's critical thinking. We essentially go by a 3-point scale. You're still working on it, seem to have gotten it well, or you're doing really well, probably better than we expected. Again, it's really simple, not yet, good, better. That's it. Creativity really stops when we try to name things. But there are about 300 lines of assessment on every one of those competencies. If you don't get it, then we can explain it to you. If you just inherently know what's going on, then you probably don't need them. But I can guarantee you, if you diligently and intentionally try to focus on one of these skills and you apply it to your project, which is the thing about which you are passionate, you'll get better at this. And if you honestly focus and care about what you're doing with your project, step by step, you will have to access one of these things, and you will be getting better at it. And content will come because it is attached. Skills development will come because it is the exercise. And that pedagogy and assessment tends to blend in really well, we think. And it seems to be working out. The 2 ways that we do this are pretty simple. It's basically a series of self-reflections that we keep having with all our students. What did you do? What did you want to learn when you were doing it? How did you get in touch with that, basically? And then the last 2 pieces are what didn't you do that well? What could you do better? As exceptional as all of our kids are, I'm hoping that at 17 they still have a little more to learn. Otherwise we'd be out of a job and this would be a smaller meeting, and I really like meeting you. So hopefully they have a lot more to learn. At the end of it, they just give me a grade. Because ultimately this is their work. It's their work, it's their idea, it's their project, it's their drive, it's their plan, it's their money, it's our money, but we give it to them. But it's our money, it's not their money. But tell me how you're doing. Tell me how you think you've done, because all of us have had that student who walks in with the C on their paper and they can tell you this is the best paper I have ever written in the history of papers. But it's not, and you know that, and I know that. That's why you have a C. Now we can sit down and we can talk about it. But hopefully we start from that self-reflection piece. They'll speak to their mentors, they'll speak to other mentors, they'll speak to their peers. And by the time they get to me, they're about 4 reflections deep, and they'll have had an honest, mindful experience of getting to grips with what they've done, why they've done it, what they could do better. And that's where the grading happens, because we need grades. They help, they make life a little simpler, and other people get to engage with them. Basically, it looks like that. This is what you should be learning. This is time. At the end of 2 years, we basically have everyone giving us something, and we sort of grow this skills development. Hopefully they get better at things across time. And that's roughly what a 2-year process is for us. And that's what we're trying to get to. Your students want to learn. Sometimes it's harder for us to connect with them and connect with that thing that they want to be in touch with. But they have enough passion, they're smart enough, they're capable enough, they're interesting enough that we can do this. Yes, it could take a little more time, but so does teaching the same thing again and again because they're not getting it, because they're not engaged, because they're not coming to class. And this is where we got to. That maybe if we get them out of class, go for a walk and try to connect with something that they're really interested in, and find a way as really good educators, and we are, and we really are, then we can find a way to connect what they want to do with what we think they need to learn, given the fact that we have no idea what they'll need in 5, 10, 50 years from now, when we're gone and they still have to clean up the messes that we're making now. And that's the idea that we put together, trying to find a way to connect the delivery with the assessment in a way that makes sense for them and keeps them hopefully walking a fairly interesting path. And that's what we're doing. Sometimes it's good to just hang back and let them go for a while and see where they get to. Usually they'll take you to an interesting place. That's what we do. And yeah, you want to talk? We'll talk afterwards.